This is highly unproductive.
Highly.
Welcome back to our Bakuman read-through. We recently read volumes technically 2 through 4, but 1 through 4 if you really need the refresher on volume 1, because it had been a hot minute since the time we read it before. It has not been a hot minute. So today we read 5 through 8, the next 4 volumes. Bakuman doesn't really have arcs.
No.
I do admire the fact that almost every chapter is a full self-contained story. Like, that's great. We don't really have, like, part 1, part 2. It's like, almost every chapter is its own thing. I mean, generally, like, linearly told, but it is sort of short story by short story, which I'm a big fan of here.
A lot happens in this one. I was actually surprised how wrong things went.
Yes. Things went very wrong.
That is continuing to be one of my favorite parts of this series.
The fact that this is literally all over the fucking place.
Like, things occasionally go right, but no, very often things go very wrong for the main characters. And the main characters are not like, this is the opposite of the previous work of the author, Death Note. The previous work of the author, Death Note, they're like, we are the smartest people in the world. No. These guys are idiots. The two friends,
so
idiots. Their manager,
idiots.
Kind of an idiot. The people giving them advice,
idiots.
Their colleagues, idiots. The leader of Shonen Jump, idiot. Everybody here is a fucking moron at times. Realistically so, though.
Yeah, these people aren't being, like, comedically stupid. It's just, obviously, looking from an outsider's perspective, you're looking at this and you're going, what the fuck, these people are all morons, but in a high-stress, high-risk, high-reward environment, like something like publishing a manga, because it is high-risk, high-reward, because you are taking a huge risk of, like, sticking a ton of your effort and time into these stories in the hopes that they will someday pay off. 90% of the time, if not more, they don't, but when they do pay off, they typically pay off pretty fucking well, you know?
And, like, it's heart-wrenching, though. Like, this, I feel like because we had ones where it didn't pay off before, where, like, they submitted a series that was denied, or they didn't win a competition. Here, though, they did it. They got a series, and it was pretty popular. Mm-hmm. And then everything went to shit.
Everything went to shit. My precious babies.
And, like, that hurt me deeply when that happened. Like, when he ended up in the hospital from overwork.
Oh. But it felt real. You know what I mean? Like, these are 2 high school kids trying to become full-time manga writer and artist, and it's a lot of work, like an insane amount of work, especially if you're supposed to be publishing on a weekly or monthly schedule. Like, that is an insane amount of work that you have to be doing. Like, it's hard, it's rough, and, you know, on top of everything else you're doing, and because they're not established, they're not working on one series. They're working on one series plus 7 other ideas at all times, just in case, in the hopes that one of them will be the next big thing.
They got out of the hospital. They had this big flag. Oh, we're going to keep working while we're in the hospital. And they submitted stuff. They made 12 chapters, and, like, 2 weeks later, before they didn't even get to use all 12 of those or something like that. It's like, my precious children.
Man, they're really... This is the... Yeah, you know, we've had a discussion about what type of fan fiction I like, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm in the mood where I want to see the characters I'm reading fan fiction about be violently, viciously, and horribly ripped into shreds before being rebuilt. I feel like I'm at the violently, viciously ripped into shreds stage, and we have not yet reached the rebuilt stage. Like, oh man, this is where I like my angst to start, but not where I want it to end.
So how about that little romance subplot, though? Where, like, it was just idiots all around.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of like that romance is never the main thing for more than, like, a subplot or 2.
They're very quick to get it, like, they're very quick to have romantic partners, but it's not, like, ever the true focus here.
And I think that really shows how this manga is not a rom-com. It is very much so like a different genre entirely. But I like that they're kind of interspersing elements that like indicate other genres and stuff like that, because it feels like we're seeing like a really interesting smattering of tropes present in a lot of different genres of manga through their actions and works.
Well, I think the romance worked well because it was almost more of... it's not there because romance is the point. It's there because it worked really well to show how the work-life balance, like...
is just non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just does not exist. Like, unless you as a girlfriend are willing to sit there and, like, color pages in for them, no. Absolutely no. Although I will say, let's make a real world joke here. Sailor Moon and Hunter x Hunter, their authors are married, right? And we've all seen the jokes online about how like she has this like work set up where it's like all nice and neat and aesthetic and she's like perfection, and we've seen his rat den, right? All of us. like she'll post photos like is posed on like her car or like in front of her studio space, and he's just like in bed, thousands of pages around him, empty like food wrappers, like looking like an actual rat living in the sewers. No hate to him. I love Hunter x Hunter and I love Sailor Moon, but holy shit, it is hilarious looking at the feeds of those two writers. Because it feels like the two opposite ends of manga writing. There's the man who is writing himself to an early grave, and the one who is very much not.
I did really love the resolution to that fight, though, where the main character's girl called him like, yeah, I get it. Please don't lie to me again. Also, by the way, I'm with her now and we're friends.
Aww, yeah. That was adorable. And kind of, I don't know, I'm going to be honest. So we've recently done a bunch of off the shelves kind of in the last couple of weeks. And one of the ones we talked about recently was Hanayori Dango. And it's kind of interesting juxtaposing the fact that Hanayori Dango is like a prime example of the anime-ism of, let me take whatever situation the characters are in and then over-exaggerate and dramatize it to the point where there are children committing literal felonies, right? And then you're looking over here at Bakuman and they're just like, oh god, did I jaywalk? You know? Like, it feels like the two opposite ends of a spectrum
like
of how to depict human life.
On one hand, you have this dumpster fire situation. On the other hand, you have like this tray of cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. Yeah, that are like rising in their own time at their own pace. You know, maybe your proving drawer isn't perfect. Maybe they're a little flat on one side, but they're going to taste just as good in the end. As opposed to like, you know, slopping all the ingredients for dough and cinnamon into a pan, mixing it with your fingers, and then baking and hoping that it'll turn into a cinnamon roll.
Sounds like my kind of baking.
I.e., it will not work.
The final arc, though, that arc hurt the fuck out of me. Like, watching the man, like, I don't remember his name. Like, he was one of the bigger advisors to the main two characters. And you just see his life go on a downward spiral due to horrible decisions on his end. And, like, really bad mentality about it all. I was like, that hurt me a lot inside.
I think, in all honesty, sometimes I talked last time about how spokespeople of the companies in question had been asked if this was actually how things went down, and they were like, it's obviously exaggerated for manga publishing and stuff like that. Sometimes I wonder just how exaggerated it is, because, like, obviously you hear stories about the industry and kind of you sometimes you hear these people talking about their situations, and it almost feels like even the elements that maybe you would look at and like dismiss offhand as that's just kind of manga exaggeration. It's like, no, this feels pretty fucking realistic.
Like, this feels like it was based on a specific person. Like, we don't know who it is, but like a specific artist's like downward spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like you feel simultaneous, like, come on, man, but also kind of bad at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It hurts a little. It's painful to watch. Like I said, I like me that angst where characters get just ripped to shreds, but typically I like the angst where they're being ripped to shreds by other people, not by their own actions. That's different. Being ripped to shreds by your own actions is not as fun as being ripped to shreds by other people and then built back up. You know?
Like, we've seen this kind of play out in slow motion for a while. Like, it's been building to that point. We start, like, we didn't talk about it last time, but like when he's in the snow and it's like you can't tell if it's supposed to be creepy, kind of romantic, or like showing how hard of working of an artist he is. No, it comes back on. That was supposed to be creepy.
Yeah. Choices people make, decisions undertaken.
It hurts because he was such a big character earlier in the series.
He really was.
It's like watching just a friend like make awful ass decisions one after another.
Which, once again, incredibly realistic. We've all been in that situation where you're like watching a friend or an acquaintance just make really terrible decisions and end up far worse off for the making of said decisions. It's not, unfortunately, that is not unique to this manga. God damn. Fucking realism.
I'm happy that's kind of where we ended it in our, like, this section too. Like, we end with him walking away with his bike.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in the snow too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, this is not, like, it wasn't even bittersweet. That was just a bitter ending. Like, with only it's a bitter ending and someone tossed in like a tiny bit of powdered sugar.
Which normally I'd be like, ooh, powdered sugar, but now I'm just like, this is not enough powdered sugar to compensate for the sheer emotional and mental damage that you have put me through. Emotional damage. But like, not as a joke.
No.
Emotional damage.
That man didn't need a girlfriend. That man needs a therapist. And a really good one.
Yeah. So much therapy. I will say, we continue to read this courtesy of Viz Media.
This one, I've been reading it on Manga Plus.
All right. Well, if you are on the desktop, I do not know about the app, but the desktop version of Viz, and you have a paid account, this is available in its entirety for free. So, on the Shonen Jump, obviously, it's through Shonen Jump. So, like I said, I've been reading it there. Did you see the lawsuit against some of the major English host websites for manga?
Oh, for the
like Manga Dex and stuff. Yeah, because Manga Dex is included apparently. So Manga Dex is partially legitimate, I guess. Is that certain series are actually licensed from Manga Dex, from what I understand. But apparently not all of the series they host on their website are licensed for English distribution under their banner.
I'd argue most of it isn't, but here's the problem. Manga Dex is such a... This is actually... this is a huge tangent. We're about to enter a Talk No Jutsu.
I know, but I say that only because if you look up where to read this, Manga Dex does come up, as it has for most of the things we've been reading. And Manga Dex is mentioned in the lawsuit by name.
Because Manga Dex, it's a piracy website, let's be real. They do, legally speaking, they do deserve everything that's coming to them. I do kind of hope they survive this, though, because Manga Dex, and this is as a Type Moon fan mostly, Manga Dex is invaluable for fan-translated works. Because it's so complicated, but, when you aren't getting stuff over here, Manga Dex tends to be the only place where you're going to get, that tends to be where a lot of fan translations get dropped onto.
I would like to make an addendum to that, is that perhaps you are right in a Type Moon context. I personally find Manga Dex does not hold most of the things that I need translated to English, and I am forced to go to other sites. And so I've got about 20 sites at any given time, depending on what I'm reading. And that is not one of the main websites that I tend to go to. Because I find that Manga Dex is somewhat particular in their catalog. And I think that is because there's some gray area in what they are and what they do and don't have on the website. As opposed to some of the other sites I go to, which we're not going to talk about.
Well, those other sites are just straight piracy. I don't think I've ever seen Manga Dex. You say there's gray area. No, I think it's just a piracy website. It's just one that's run. It's one that's not run on like. It's one run more in good faith, not as a scam.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest here. Most piracy websites are a scam to try getting malware on your phone.
Which apparently that shows up way worse on Apple phones than it does on Samsung. Because I don't know what the fuck's up with you, but there's a few things that I've wanted you to read that unless you are willing to pay an ungodly amount of money, you're not going to be finding very easily on online. And there's some things like, for example, like Solo Leveling. I pay the money to buy both the web novel and webtoon of Solo Leveling. I paid my fee to buy those. Do I still go and read it on websites that are not legally hosting it? Yes. Only because the legal hosting website charges like several dollars a chapter and there's 200 chapters. And I intend to buy them. Like, I put the pre-orders out as soon as they appear online. So, like, I am spending the money to buy both versions of it in paper. But the versions in paper are not out yet. They're not being published fast enough.
If I had to take a guess, Apple and Samsung probably use different ad blocking programs. So yeah. Apple's going to block certain ads while Samsung's going to block others. And you just, the websites you're looking at here, you're better. Because I know I've accessed websites in anime before when like there's an anime that just isn't available on any streaming service right now that we need to watch, where I can access it much easier than you can, whereas if I bring up that same site, you're like, oh god, no.
Yeah. So at least a lot of the websites I use to engage in the reading of non-traditionally English published work, we're going to call it that, non-traditionally published. The websites I use don't always seem to work for Knick-Knack, and we ran into that with another series recently where I found a website that worked perfectly well for me, and I sent it to you, and you couldn't use it.
Like, everything I do would get a pop-up. If I wasn't, like, uber careful, I would click into a pop-up ad.
Well, and the thing is, I don't know how it works, but, so I do get the pop-ups, but they just appear in, because Samsung's got the multi-tab and folder thing. Mm-hmm. So all of the pop-ups just appear as new tabs outside of the folder I'm reading in, and they don't actually load unless I click into them. So like every 10 chapters or so, I just click out of my folder and close any pop-ups that appear, and nothing bad happens to my phone. Like, I've never gotten malware or any sort of virus on my phone, and sometimes I'll have like 100 pop-ups outside of my folder.
Gotten any malware or viruses either, but it's just my experience, because sometimes they just don't even give. Sometimes it's a clear like, and even the X is unclear because sometimes that X is also like just a fake X.
Yeah.
So it's pop-up ads are really rough.
Or sometimes it's X at once, a pop-up will appear, so you click out of the pop-up and then click the X again, and then the ad disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, it's just something that you got to work around. It's not as bad on desktop browsers, I've found. Like, in desktop browsers, you can pretty much avoid all of that. It's particularly bad on mobile devices.
But desktop browsers, I'm a little bit more concerned with the desktop browser.
Well, I mean, once again, I've never had an issue with a desktop browser, but irregardless, there are issues, and so I do appreciate when, for a reasonable price, any website offers an online reading format. Even if in the case of some of these, it's a little bit hard to get to it, like you can't access it through their app or something like that, at least it is available. And for as little as we're reading sometimes, if we're just reading like 3 or 4 volumes, I read very, very fast. I mean, for me, that's the work of maybe a half hour sitting at my computer. And I already spend a lot of time at my computer, so it's no real hardship for me to spend like another half hour to read something, to have that effort kind of expended, to not have to deal with that. It's just me personally. And like I said, the pop-ups on my phone never bother me. I just have a system for clearing them out. Sometimes some websites don't do any pop-ups, even though it says they will, and some do like 10 per page, and I just close them out. It depends. Yeah. I think a lot of the times, if you choose the load option on pages, where it just loads all the pages in a row, like vertically, right, and then scroll through them, typically that does less pop-ups than if you're clicking through page to page. Because if you're clicking through page to page, you have a chance for a pop-up every time you click. If you're just scrolling through an entire chapter, you're only going to get a pop-up ad like once at the top and maybe once somewhere in the middle or at the bottom, if at all. But manga about the publishing world. Bakuman. By the way, they have created so many stories at this point. Like, they have tried so many different ideas. They really are just throwing it at the wall to wait and see what sticks. I don't know if that's the best option for them. I mean, like, in terms of, like, the story going forward, I mean, I don't know if they're going to find more sort of, like, luck and success from throwing it at the wall until it sticks, or actually trying to, like...
double down on what they're good at.
Yeah, and produce something.
That is something they consistently commentate on in this. Yeah. It's like, they keep kind of jumping genres to try to figure out what works for them. But, like, they were already receiving really high marks on their more drama, darker drama oriented.
And so it seems that the problem is that in some ways, a lot of their issues would be solved if they were willing to switch to a different publisher, right? One who catered towards a more sort of darker adult storyline, you know, like high sci-fi, stuff like that. But they're not willing to do that. So at this point, they're just kind of throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks in the hopes that they'll get something published in Shonen Jump. And I understand wanting to get published in a specific thing, but in their case, it kind of feels like they could, like, build their name doing something else.
There's a level of stubbornness involved here.
Yeah, like, they are being really stubborn. And don't get me wrong, I understand being really stubborn. I still have yet to ever read or watch an episode of Attack on Titan, no matter how many people push me and tell me that I'm eventually going to have to.
Didn't you read it for class? I
said I read it for class. I did not, in fact, read it for class.
Seki, I'm going to jump over this table and strangle you.
I shit you not. She told us we had to pull out, like, a couple of pages here and there, like one or two images. I just, like flipped the book till I found an image that I thought had a lot of symbolism, and then talked about it.
Oh, my Jesus Christ.
I am nothing if not a stubborn little fucker.
When it comes out of the hat, I will actually delete the channel if I find out you fake did this. I will do it myself. I will take the logins and delete the channel.
I will change the logins. I will change them. I will change the recovery phone. You will never be able to.
Like, you shouldn't have told me that, because now there will be a quiz. There will be a test.
I really don't want to watch or read Attack on Titan.
Like, here, I thought you would, because after that happened, you're like, oh yeah, I'm okay, for like years now. I'm like, fine, okay, she tried it, she didn't like it. I have my problems with Attack on Titan too.
Okay, to be fair, I say I didn't read it I didn't read it in detail, but, like, obviously to find the image I needed to find, I did have to, like, kind of scan read. So, like, I read a little bit, I mean, here and there, but I was bored at the end of chapter 1, so I kind of just scanned my way through the rest of the volume. I was like, I don't like this. It's not doing it for me.
I don't even like Attack on Titan, mind you, and I'm mad on behalf of Attack on Titan fans. I hope you know that.
Look, I'm sure I'll eventually have to watch it for the channel, and I have yet to not watch something for the channel. You know? Unlike, some people who skip certain episodes. Due to time constraints, of course.
I'm pretty sure the only episodes we actively skipped were by mistake.
I know. I'm making a joke.
And if you're talking about the fairy tale incident, no. You told us those episodes were optional, and with those episodes you would have gone over your episode count.
Shut the fuck up. I wasn't talking about the fairy tale thing. Irregardless, I don't know, man. I kind of hope that... I hope that either their stubborn streak pays off or something breaks them out of it. Because at the moment, it feels like non-productive stubbornness to me. Like at the end of Volume 8. It no longer feels like sort of a productive, like, constantly improve. I mean, like, obviously they're improving constantly, but, like, it doesn't feel that outside of their skills, they're really gaining anything from doing this constant genre jumping and kind of, like, flitting from idea to idea. And I understand coming up with, like, a ton of different ideas and wanting to bring them all to life, but they're never all going to be picked up, and it's just not...
Well, I think this last time they didn't expect them all to be picked up. The reason they did that many is they wanted to write something specific, and the editor didn't necessarily want. So they had to kind of go behind the editor's back. That's what was going on there a little bit.
But if you count up over like 8 volumes, I mean they've written like 15 stories. Like it's an insane amount of like manga that they've produced in what I assume is like a 6-month period or so. They're not even done with their first year of high school. So, like, maximum 6-month period. I mean, they're popping out, like, what, 2, 3, 4 a month? Different ideas? That's a lot to do, like, at least 1 chapter of each. That's insane.
Well, sometimes 1 chapter of each, because usually a lot of these end up being one-offs.
I know, but still, even if it's a one-off, that's a lot of different one-offs. You know? And you can't tell me that if Shonen Jump was like, hey, we love this one-off, could you continue it? They wouldn't say, oh, yes.
But a lot of times they're being told no with this.
That doesn't matter. They're still throwing so much shit at the wall in the hopes it's going to stick. Like, just think of it this way. What if you wrote a different, like, what if you wrote a 40-page short story every single week and drew illustrations for it for 6 months?
Okay, I had the illustrations there because the 40-page short story, that happen every once in a while, at least on a bi-weekly basis.
Yep, that's bi-weekly. What if it was weekly with storyboards? That's a lot.
But with writing, oftentimes it just doesn't come out well on the first try, and then you do have to. Sometimes you just don't stick with that idea.
But that doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say here is they are putting out an insane amount of content in the hopes that something will get picked. And granted, I understand that they're putting out a bunch of different things because they're getting a bunch of no's. But, you know, they had kind of yeses already, and they had suggestions of how to, you know, be able to continue with what they had already put out. And instead of pursuing any of that, they're like, no, we're just going to keep trying new things until something sticks. That is very stubborn, and I'm really curious how long they're going to be able to keep up with that.
Isn't a huge part of that also that they're basically fighting with because their editor wanted them to completely change tone altogether, and their editors are giving them mixed messages on what they should or shouldn't be doing?
In some ways, but it doesn't help that there have been several times where their editor's like, yeah, you can do this, this, or this, and then they brought something back entirely different and just scrapped the...
Well, sometimes they completely misunderstand what the editor is saying. Like, the editor says, you need to try doing something that appeals more to the Jump audience. Mm-hmm. They go back and write a generic battle manga, and it's like, no, this is awful, take it back.
Yeah. Okay, but none of your arguments are saying anything towards the fact that they are putting out an insane amount of content on a weekly basis. Like, sure, they might have a reason for what they're doing. That doesn't change the fact that this is an unsustainable, like, amount of new stories to be publishing. Or trying to publish.
But the end goal is not to be putting out this many. The end goal is to get one that works.
I realize
that one works, they stick with it until it gets either as long as they can or until it gets canceled.
I realize that. But they're also, like, for the vast majority of these stories... they're not even bothering to try to workshop them. You know? Like, a lot of the time, if it doesn't work, they kind of just scrap the entire thought process and come up with a brand new one from scratch, sometimes jumping whole genres. That's drastic. That's not typical.
That's actually one of the more common ways you can get out of a writing slump.
Yes, for like the typical writer, but I don't think that's exactly how it works for manga publishing and writing. Because I'm pretty sure if you're working at like a certain like company or genre, you might be putting out a bunch of different stories, but they're all fairly similar.
Like the big thing they did like after their series got canceled, that's a common thing writers do when something's just not, with their story's not working. Literally change the genre, try.
Yeah, but I think... I understand that you're coming from like, that you do this, but you are not outputting content at the same rate as they are, or in the same quantity, or with the same level of detail that they're required to do it. I mean, they're producing manga, which is, in and of itself, in my opinion, I think it's a more physically taxing process than simply writing a short story or like a chapter of a story. Because writing is writing, whereas they're also having to do the art and the backgrounds and all of the other stuff.
If I could I do agree that they're doing a lot, but I think that it's the high schooling, that's the entire point of that little arc where they're in like the hospital arc. Where I disagree on that though is they're not both doing writing. They're not both doing drawing. In fact, the drawer, who is arguably the most extensive job.
Yeah. But their work is dependent on one another and the time schedules that each other keeps.
And a lot of the time, we also see that when one's working on one thing, the other one will go do either develop or start brainstorming ideas, and that's why they're getting so much out, because they're a 2-person team.
But it's too much. That's why they were in the hospital. It's too much.
They landed in the hospital when they were focusing on one series. It was the high school aspect of that, having to keep the high school schedule and put out as much content as they were.
I don't know, man. I still think it's. I'd love to see manga writers talking about how much they produced on a weekly basis when getting series picked up and doing stuff like this. You know, I know the industry's brutal, but damn, that's it's just. I think the reason why I think it's a lot is exacerbated by the fact that they're hopping genres. I would not think it was nearly as unachievable if they were sticking to a relatively similar palette, but they're not. They're hopping genres. And that in itself requires research and probably means that they have to make several drafts of their new work because they've got to, take out things, add things, try something new. It makes it's harder to do new things because you have to put more into it when you're not used to it, which ups the level of difficulty for how much they're producing.
So I do agree with you. But I also think, and I'm not even going to blame the editors like I was earlier on this one. I think this has a lot to do with the fact that the style this comes more down to their stubbornness of staying at Shonen Jump than anything. Because...
But that's what I mean. They're going to come to a point where they've got to make a decision. Stay at Shonen Jump, change the way that they write and draw fundamentally, or write and draw what they want and what they're good at and leave Shonen Jump. There's going to be a breaking point. It's going to have to go one way or the other. They're not going to get everything they want.
I don't think there needs to be a breaking point, because this happens all the time. Because in Shonen Jump, you look at Shonen Jump right now, not all the Shonen Jump series are, key demographic Shonen series. And not all I think, isn't Spy X Fam Shonen Jump?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Spy X Fam is Shonen.
But it does not follow what you would consider key components of normal Shonen. With Shonen Jump, a lot of these skirting the line shonen to other genres have to really do research into what aspects they need to, and they do that here. They research that they need to work on their humor, and they do.
Let's see, what is currently running in Shonen Jump? I'm just curious. Okay, so I know what's running present. It's colored orange. So we've got Undead Unluck, Me and Roboko, Sakamoto Days. Oh, I know Sakamoto Days.
Yeah, Shonen Jump. There's things that obviously work, and there's things that are that probably shouldn't work, but the author did a good job retrofitting their style to that audience.
Yeah. And interesting. I did not realize that was what was running in Shonen Jump. Interesting.
As easy as it is to forget, because let's be honest here, all Shonen Jump is the One Piece machine.
You're not wrong. Oh, because I can look back at what was serialized. I mean, My Hero Academia is still running.
Oh yeah, Jump. No. I say facetiously.
Yeah. Well, yeah, One Piece. There it is, 1997 to present. It is the oldest currently running series. The only thing close to it is My Hero Academia from 2014. The next series after that is Jujutsu Kaisen. That's 2018.
Then Death Note was also Shonen Jump. That is very much not a typical shonen series.
That's fair.
And I think that's kind of where this is where I think the author's experiences really play into Bakuman. Because that author... I have to imagine the experience getting something darker published in Shonen Jump was part of what influenced this particular arc that the characters are going through.
Interesting. Yeah, some things didn't serialize for very long, but Bakuman was in Shonen Jump.
Yeah, for that's definitely not a traditional
years.
shonen.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because another character is going through the exact same arc as they are, just from the other direction. They're coming like they benefit more from going full dark seinen in a different magazine. The other character would benefit from just going full shoujo in the shoujo magazines, and she's sticking with Shonen Jump.
That's certainly a choice.
So I think that's
guys, consider that there are other magazines. Please, all of you.
Except I think some of the most creative things to come out of Shonen Jump are the stuff that like you don't think actually comes out of Shonen Jump if you live in the West. One Piece you could tell comes out of Shonen Jump.
I'm just saying.
But like Death Note, one of the most acclaimed like anime manga series of all time, second season aside. No one would guess at Shonen Jump if they only had a cursory knowledge of what Shonen Jump like audience normally liked. I think it's just finding the style. Like it's them growing into being able to write shonen within their darker style.
How old Death Note is? I was just double checking when it came out. It's older than I think. That's what fucks with me. Yeah. Yeah. Well. 4 more volumes next time?
Sure.
4 more volumes. Maybe not immediately.
Yeah.
I might need a bit of a break from this series. We've read a lot of this series very quickly. I mean, even for me, I mean, I just, it's hard to binge things when you have to stop at a certain point. And I do, otherwise I'll forget where the book's cut off, so. How's the multi-volume working out for you?
It's working out all right. I think if I have the one big problem with the multi-volume is it's on weeks where it works. Mm-hmm. But when things get busier at work specifically, it's a lot harder for me to be able to like say, oh, I can definitely have this read by the weekend for us to record on it. So now it's like, well, I'm able to have
maybe not.
one thing, maybe not. Sometimes I get one good day and I can get through like 2 series. Sometimes I can barely get through the opening pages of something.
That's fair. My problem's procrastination. I just wait till the last possible minute to read this shit. I could read it real early. I don't. I'm too busy doing other things. Unimportant things. So with that being said, we'll be back next time. I don't know what's after this. I don't know when this is coming out. We're not filming these in the order that they're releasing, so enjoy that. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.